Matthew chapter 16, verse 21. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said. "This shall never happen to you." And Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. I want to speak to you for a few moments tonight with you from the subject, I'm losing control. I am losing control. If you're a control freak, this is going to be your worst nightmare. Because it's not fun being a control freak. It's not fun when your head is not doing well because you're trying to control too many things at the same time, because so many things in life happen all at the same time. Bad things happen all at the same time. Something goes wrong all at the same time, as other things are going wrong at the same time. And it's not fun being a planner because, confession time, I am a control freak. If you know anything about me, I like to plan ahead of time. And it's not fun being a planner. It's not fun being a control freak. Aunt Debbie is pointing at her husband. And my wife is agreeing with me because it's not fun being a control freak. Think about how much devastation the world has faced because of control freaks. Think about how many wars the world has seen. People fighting over other people and other territories and just wanting control. Nations, kings, politicians. Just because they want to control. They want more stuff. They want more control. And I don't know about you, even if you don't call yourself a control freak, a part of you, there's a control freak in every single person here. You might not be as controlling as someone else, but you all want to control something in your life. We want to feel safe. We want to feel secure. All of us want some kind of control in our lives. And you might not call yourself a control freak, but I know people who are very calm and very collected, but when things take a turn, and you're sitting behind a computer, or you're sitting behind a wheel, and you're just shaking, and you're sweating, and somebody asks you, "Are you okay?" You're like, "I've got it under control." Well, that is not really under control. You are losing control. All of us lose control. A few years ago, in 2020, my wife and I took a trip to one of the mountains in North Carolina. It's called Wintergreen Resort, and it was a ski trip. We still haven't had a honeymoon yet, proper honeymoon yet, but that was a small 2-day trip, which was our little honeymoon. That was all we could afford, and she bought tickets and ski passes, and I had never been skiing. At that point, I had never gone skiing. And another thing that you might want to know is that this was beginning of 2020. COVID was right around the corner, and I got COVID before we knew what COVID was, and I just did not feel good. And I felt horrible during that whole trip. And I told her, I don't feel like I want to go to skiing because I don't feel like I can ski right now. I am losing my mind, my body is hurting, my head is hurting, and I don't know how to ski in the first place. And my wife, even though she's not a control freak, she became a control freak that day. And she said, 2 days is all we can afford, and all you want to do is just sit in this room and not have fun with me. And I said, you know what? The wrath of me falling a couple times is better than facing that, so I'm going to go. So I went and put on the skis, and I had never skied before. So it was literally like Bigfoot walking around. I'm like, what do I do? And I pride myself in being a very athletic guy. I've played soccer all my life. So when I saw these little kids zoom past, and one of them even looked at me and said, "Slowpoke," and I just kept going. And I was like, what is going on? So me being the competitive self, I started going And Lauren was gone. I couldn't find her because she is an outdoors girl. If she's outdoors and she has something to play, if she's got a football or she's got rollerblades or she's got skiing, she's gone. So I'm left alone, and I'm trying to stay under control, and I see her go swish, 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 having a great time. And her recent husband just down the side of a mountain falling, trying to stay under control. That was a blow to my ego, but I kept on falling because I couldn't stay in control. One of the worst things about control freaks is we like to plan. And Peter had a plan because the scripture that we just read, where Jesus is telling his disciples that this is what I came for. I have to go to the cross. I came to go to the cross. I must go to the cross. That's the only reason. And Peter had a plan in his own mind because the popularity of Jesus is at an all-time high. And Jesus, even though he told them through the 3 years that he was with them, that my purpose is that I came to die for the world, for the sins of the world. I'm going to go to the cross. But the disciples didn't really understand it. And so Peter, thinking that Jesus is the most popular person in Judea right now, Jesus is healing people all over the place, Jesus is raising the people from dead, and Jesus, his name is all over the newspapers. You know, if he was today, if Jesus was around today, Peter would be saying, Jesus, Joe Rogan's got you on his podcast, and now Fox and CNN, they both want interviews with you. What do you want me to say, Jesus? They're nominating you to be the mayor of this place. They're nominating you to be a king. We can take on Rome. All these people will follow you no matter where you tell them to go. Jesus, we've got work to do. Everybody is in love with you. Everybody wants to follow you. Let's take on Rome. Let's take on the world. And Jesus said, no, that's not what I came here to do. That's not my purpose. And Peter's plan didn't work out. See, we pride ourselves on coming up with the best plans and try to stick with them. And when Peter's plan didn't work out, he begins to rebuke Jesus. The Bible tells us he was rebuking Jesus. Can you even imagine rebuking someone who you have seen raise the dead? Can you imagine saying, no, you can't do that. We got to do this. Because Peter, the control freak he was, didn't want anything interrupting his plan. It's almost as if I look at myself and I say, I've made up this plan, and this is going to happen, and anytime something interrupts my plan, how dare they do that to me? How can this plan be interrupted? I made a plan. I was on a schedule. Nothing should be able to interrupt me. How arrogant can that be to say that nothing should interrupt my plans, that the whole world revolves around me? Nothing should be able to interrupt me. You see, we try to control the things in our life is because we have a mental picture in our heads of what we want the event to look like, what we want our day to look like, what we want our season to look like. We have a picture in our mind that we see very clearly, and we want that to become reality. We make sure, we try to do everything we can to bring that to reality because we want to see our mental picture become reality. But such is life that always doesn't happen. What we think in our minds, we want to become reality, but it doesn't always happen. Life doesn't work that way. A lot of times, Thanksgiving dinners get ruined. You've been planning it for months and then turkey caught on fire. You can't help it. You have to get a rotisserie chicken. We called it a turkey. Not a turkey and a chicken, but in the middle, turkey. That's what we called it. That really happened. Awful things can happen at Thanksgiving. Somebody makes a dreadful announcement. The gifts you've been planning to get for Christmas didn't get delivered on time. And now you're sitting around the tree with nothing but hot cocoa in your hands, just opening imaginary presents. I was supposed to be a college athlete. Oh, I was supposed to run track. I was supposed to be a football player. I had this plan. I had all these scholarships, and then the last month of college, of high school, got an injury. All my plans are thwarted. Nothing that I had imagined can come to pass. This isn't supposed to happen. This wasn't in my plans. It's not supposed to happen. And the control freak that I am, when something goes wrong, the last thing I want to do is give up control. The last thing I want to do is let things happen on their own. I hate giving up control. Anytime I'm trying to teach someone something, I'm a horrible teacher, by the way. I was trying to teach Lauren guitar, and it just didn't work out. That's why she can't play guitar, because if I know something, and if you haven't really caught up in my time, I get really angry. Anytime I want something get done, I have learned that I need to do it myself, because I can't disappoint myself. I have a standard, and I always go for that standard, because I know I will not disappoint myself. I'm a person who hates to delegate, because I know I can do better. Not the way we should look at life. But here's the dilemma. You can only do so many things. And you can only do so many things at certain times. And you can't be everything for everyone all the time. Haven't you tried trying to be everything for everyone? Haven't you tried trying things your way? Haven't you tried controlling things your way? Haven't you tried controlling your schedule? Haven't you tried controlling the season that you're in? And the hardest thing for a parent to do is to give up control when your children get older and it's time for them to live on their own. It's the hardest thing for many parents, because you have to understand that at one point they have to make their own choices. You must make choices for them when they're young, when they're living in your house, and you get to make the decisions for them, because they can't really make, when they're young, they can't really make intelligent, safe decisions, sometimes life-altering decisions. So you have to make them for them, but at some point you have to let them go, and they have to make their own decisions. I don't even have kids, and I freak out, because I'm worried about when I do have kids. And I can't preach to you about parenting because I have no kids, so we'll talk about this in 20 years when I'm 46 and I have something to say. But until then, until that point, all I have is speak from great examples that I have, my own parents. See, I don't have kids, but I'm already freaking out bringing them into this crazy, dangerous world that we're living in right now. And so I can't even imagine what it feels like to do what my parents did when they sent me to a boarding school when I was 12. And now, to literally have their son on the other side of the world. See, only a good father, a good mother knows what it feels like to really trust your children with the only good father in this universe, the good father, to protect their children and to be with them 24/7, giving him the control. See, I hate giving up control. I can't stand the feeling of me losing control, something that was in my hand, something that I was prepared for, and something was wrong. And when I see a situation slipping, I can't face the fact that I'm losing control. Anytime I have to talk to someone on the phone, and you're dealing with tech support, and you're dealing with, people who are paid to help you online and on the phone, because no one actually wants to talk to you. You have to sit with a machine for 20 minutes. And press 1, press 5, press 9. And finally, after 2 hours, when you finally speak to a person, it happens to be an Indian on the other side. And I'm not dunking on my people. I love them. I am from India. I am Indian. But whenever I get stuck with an Indian, I can't understand them and they can't understand me. And so anytime, our work is mostly online. So we have to have a lot of subscriptions for a lot of softwares. And a lot of times, I have had this happen to me before. All the subscriptions are paid, all the fees are paid, everything is going just fine. And then the software suddenly stops working. And I call this company, and after 2 hours, finally a person comes along, and they tell me that, yes, everything is fine on your end. You paid for it. I don't know what's going on, but we'll get back to you in a couple of days. And I said, I need to get it done now, because I have a deadline too. And, sir, we can't really help you. And I'm just sitting on the phone, and I can feel my hands shaking, and my voice changing, and my wife's like, honey, are you okay? And I'm like, I've got it under control. And she says, just the way you said that, it's exactly the opposite of you having it under control. You're about to lose control. Anytime I feel like I'm stuck on the phone with someone that doesn't understand me, that can't help me, and I really need something to get done, I feel like some rage is building up inside of me, and I'm about to lose control of my tongue. Anybody in here that loses control of their tongue? Bad words come out, flying out, and you don't even know where they came from? I am. I'm guilty of that. The same lips that speak God's word can also spit out poison sometimes. See, the thing about Peter is that Peter didn't have control over his tongue. Peter had his foot in his mouth most of the time. And I really relate to that guy. He's my favorite disciple. The pre-saved Peter, the fisherman Peter, the Peter before he became the leader of the first church, the Peter that later becomes the leader of the New Testament church. I'm talking about the pre-saved Peter who was walking around with Jesus, because he would always say the wrong thing, he would always upset someone, and he would always be trying to control Jesus and try to control the other disciples to do what he wanted to do. Peter's my favorite because he always lost control of his tongue, and I'm very guilty of that. James chapter 3 verse 4 says, take ships for example. Even though they are very large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder. The tongue controls everything. How many times have I lost control of my tongue? And we don't like to talk about this, but in a culture where we're living in, everybody has an opinion, everybody wants to share their opinion, everybody wants you to know what they think, everybody wants you to know their political beliefs, everybody wants you to know their core beliefs, and if you don't agree with them, you're wrong. If you don't agree with someone, well, they are just the worst person. Everybody wants us to know their opinions. It is a skill in today's time to be able to control your tongue. Not everyone needs to know what you had for breakfast. Not everyone needs to know that you got married again, Karen. Not everyone needs to know. Because you think the tongue is the only thing that we lose control over? Our tongues in today's time, in our world, now our fingers have become our tongues in a way. We scroll, we type our opinions. We're searching for stuff. We're always trying to tell people what the right thing is, what the wrong thing is. And I believe in our time, not everyone needs to know what is in your heart, except when it's necessary. Another thing that people have a hard time when it comes to control. Don't you know people who like to control other people? Don't you know narcissists and manipulators? Some of us have been under them, and they love the feeling of controlling other people. And they absolutely hate when someone that they have been controlling for a while, when they start to lose control, when they start to think on their own, and they get away from the grip. Manipulators absolutely hate that feeling. And when you have been under the control of a narcissist, when you've been manipulated enough, some of that can rub off on us. And when you have been manipulated enough, we want to not be manipulated again, so we try to control the behavior and opinions of others. You know how sometimes you might be losing control? It's because you are trying to control the opinions of others about you. You might be trying to control other people. The Bible tells us, guard your heart. Guard your heart. And I have tried controlling other people's opinions of me over the years. And guess what? I've learned that you can't. I have tried to control how other people feel about me, what they think about me. You can't. So many hours, so many days we have wasted trying to change other people's opinions of us and to see if they like us or not. The Bible tells us, guard your heart and understand that the only one whose opinion matters is Jesus, and he already loves you. And his opinion of you is not going to change based on your performance. The only people whose opinions matter about you are the people who make an impact on your life. Forget about everyone else. Because if you want to control what other people think of you, you will always be controlled by their opinion of you. Let me say that again. If you always want to control what other people think of you, you will always be controlled by their opinion of you. Then you will always think about how to act and how to please someone else. You will always be doing things just to please someone else. You will always be saying things not to hurt someone else. Instead of being concerned with God, we sometimes concern ourselves too much with humans. That's what Jesus said to Peter. Your mind is full with human concerns. You do not have in mind the concern of God, but mainly human concerns. Human concerns. All of us have human concerns. All of us deal with things every day. Sudden bill arises. Somebody gets sick. Someone gets fired. Someone says something to you. Your boss, your job, anxiety, stress. See, whatever we don't let God control will eventually control us. If it's anxiety, if it's stress, whatever you have in your heart, if God doesn't control it, it will start to control you. Because at the bottom of it all, your desire to hold on, your need to control as much as you can, behind all of that lies just one thing: fear. Fear of not being relevant, fear of being disappointed again, feeling of fear of failing again, fear of falling again, fear of not being able to please others, fear of making mistakes, fear of what others will think, fear of being lost, fear of losing, fear of rejection, fear of being insecure, fear of being unsafe. I want to ask you one thing tonight. What is something that has been controlling you? What are the things that are trying to control you? Is there anything in your life that you have been trying to desperately control? With all your efforts of controlling things and outcomes, let me ask you one thing. Everything that you've been trying to control, are you controlling it? Or is that controlling you? Is the fear of the outcome controlling you? Is the fear of losing make you feel like you're about to lose it? What is it in your life that you're chasing? What is it in your life that you're after? That you can't think about nothing else but that one particular thing that you're trying to control. And now think about it. Is that controlling you? Is that all you can think about? Let me read to you one more scripture. Luke chapter 12, verse 16, where Jesus tells them a parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. What a nice problem to have. And then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. I almost picture a menacing laugh going by it. Ha, 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 ha. I've got everything I want. Take life easy, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? The parable of the rich young fool, of the rich fool, the Bible calls it. You might have read it before in your life, in your own Bible study. And a lot of times we think that it's about greed and money and comfort, but I'm going to show you another side that I missed before, a different angle, because this parable can also be about control. Because the one thing that was controlling this man was greed. The one thing that was controlling this man was the love of money. Forget about the fact that, oh, I had a great harvest, I had a great year. What can I do to help someone else? What can I do to help some of my family? What can I do to make good use of this? No! Let me save all of it for tomorrow. See, God was gracious to him and his crop. He didn't make the harvest get this big. It was God who blessed him. He didn't cause the surplus. He didn't control how fast and vast they grew. It was God. But his life was all about control. Controlling his life and controlling his comfort, the things that we can give importance to sometimes, things that we don't really need. Sometimes vanity controls us. And the moment you can't have it, we shut down because we were being controlled by things of this world. We were being controlled by stuff. And God tells him, I am in charge. I have been in charge this whole time. God was in charge the whole time, and tells him, this night, your life is demanded from you. When this man thought he was in control, that his future is secure, he's collected enough for the next few years, and all he can do is just be comfortable and relax. God tells him, your life is taken from you tonight. This shows us how fragile life can be. It's almost arrogant to think that you are in control. God is in control. He has been in control this whole time. When I think about how many people lived before me and how many people are going to live after me, I realize how powerless we really are. How fragile life really is. You can fool yourself into thinking that you are finally in control. You have a good job. You have a good house. Everything is going how it's supposed to be going. My future is secure. I have a great retirement plan. And then life laughs at us. Because one fall is all it takes. One call can change your life. One text, one email, and everything that you thought you had built up, you begin to lose control. When I was young, I remember this time of my life where I was really scared. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. And to this day, I don't understand what happened. But I remember suddenly I began to choke. And there was nothing stuck in my system, no food or anything like that. I was just playing with my little brother. He was 2 or 3 at the time. And I couldn't breathe. I was choking in my, and I could only take like very short amounts of breath. And I realized that I'm holding it in and slowly it's going to go away. And my dad, he freaked out. He put me in the car and he was looking for the doctor. And at that point, there was no Google in India. This was a long time ago. And so the only doctor he knew of, he rushed to that doctor. And I was just laying down in the back of the car. And I couldn't breathe. And I kept telling him, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And it was possibly one of the most scary times in my life. And I really thought that I was going to die. And I have never seen my father more afraid, before or after that event. I have never seen him more scared. Because I was telling him, I can't breathe. And he didn't know what was going to happen. And you can keep throwing money at the doctor and say, get the sickness out of him, make him well, make her good, make her better, make her healthy, name your price. You can do everything right, be a great father, and still feel powerless. So we can't control everything. By the way, I was fine because I'm standing here right now. There was some kind of gas issue. I don't know. And he gave me something to drink, and in about 5 to 10 minutes, I started breathing well again. And I don't understand what happened, but that was a very scary 15 minutes where my dad thought he lost. He's going to lose me. And I thought I was going to lose my life. But after running around like fish out of water, giving away our lives and working ourselves to death, creating a foolproof plan, we realized we can't control, eventually, nothing. A few weeks ago, we were talking about the disciples on a boat, caught in the middle of a storm, and Jesus was asleep peacefully in the middle of the storm. But the disciples were about to be thrown off board. The storm was fierce, and the disciples had completely lost control. They didn't know what was going to happen. They were losing control. And sometimes I have felt that way in my life. The wind and the waves and the circumstances of life and the difficulties of life, they're throwing you around, and you have lost control, and you feel like you're about to go overboard. And I have felt out of control for most of my life. Which direction is my life going to go in? What the consequences of my decisions are going to be? When I was in a boarding school and then coming to the US, and people trying to control every little detail of my life. I always thought that I lost my wife before I even got to marry her. And it was a very scary time. And I thought I couldn't control anything. And even though, in hindsight, I know that God was in control the whole time. Even though there was nothing that I could control at the moment, I realized that He was controlling everything behind the scenes. So even when I didn't feel like I was in control, the reality is I didn't need to be in control. I didn't need to. I just needed to keep moving forward. And God did the miracles only He could do. God did the things that only He can do. See, He controls the winds and the wave. He got up when His disciples were scared, and He said, peace. And there was a sudden calm. If He can control nature, the winds and the waves, maybe, just maybe, He has control over your life. So, the last question, that I'm going to ask as we finish our evening? How do I live in peace knowing that I can't control anything? How can I be at peace knowing that I'm not the one in control? The only way to live in peace is giving up the control to the one who actually is in control. This is the Christian life. It means surrender. When you give your life to Jesus, He demands total surrender. You give up your will. You give up your life. He controls your life because He gave His life for you. And so anytime you find yourself in a storm, why do you think that after going to the cross, He's going to leave you in this life right now? After giving up His life, after giving you eternal life, why would He leave you alone right now? The only way is surrender. Giving up control hurts. Take it from a control freak. Anytime I have to give up control, I lose it. But that is exactly what we're called to do. Surrender. Total surrender, which means I give up. I'm giving you the control. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I'm going to stop worrying because I can't control tomorrow anyway. When things get difficult, the more out of control you feel, the more control we want to have, which is a recipe for a brain gone haywire. The more out of control you feel, the more we try to hold on to the things that we can control. That's why so many people hold on to little things that don't matter, that don't enhance the quality of life. Someone said something derogatory to you, and it's been 20 years, and every time you look in the mirror, all you see is a reflection of what someone else said that you were. I was told by a church leader in another church that because I'm not white and because of my race, I was going to be a freeloader, a lazy freeloader. See, people can say things to you that'll hurt, that you couldn't control. Things will happen to you that you couldn't control. A lot of times, parents of children get divorced, and a lot of times, these kids, they take it on themselves. They think it is my fault. That they couldn't stay together. I wasn't enough for them to stay together. And then they spend their entire lives trying to get other people to like them so that they wouldn't leave them. Now, I'm saying these things because you couldn't control what happened to you. But what you can control is how you respond to it. Don't let it control you. Don't let it become your identity. You can say that this is not going to be my identity. My identity is defined by my God. My Maker gets to tell me who I am. My Maker gets to tell me what my worth is. I will not let these lies define me because He has control over me. Total control. And I want to tell you tonight, give it to God. Say, I give up. I can't control anything. Giving control to Jesus means you are binding yourself to Him. You do what He tells you. You stop fighting with your words with other people because you can control other people anyway. You give up control. You do what God wants you to do because you have given the control to Him. So what I want no longer matters. Paul says, I've been crucified with Christ. I'm on the cross. I'm a dead man. I have no will. Whatever He wants in my life, whatever He wants for my life is the only thing that matters. No matter what I wanted in my life, doesn't matter. It is His will. And so I act like a son of God, not someone who's running around like someone who has no control. Paul calls himself a bondservant of Christ, which means a slave of Christ. I have bound myself from Him. Christ is the only thing. Christ is the only one who covers me. He covers me. His blood covers me. And He is my Lord and He is my Master. He controls the winds and the waves. So anytime you feel like you're in a boat, and it's rocking and you're about to go overboard, and you feel like the winds are controlling my boat, well, if Jesus is in your boat, Jesus controls the wind. And the last thing I want to tell you is that there were things that we couldn't control. You couldn't control your salvation. You couldn't control your eternal life. We have no control when it comes to salvation. If you think that you are doing good and relying on your own righteousness and faith and your own good works, newsflash. God saved us because of grace. You have salvation because of your faith in Jesus. our own good works mean absolutely nothing. The Bible calls them, your righteousness is like filthy rags. He saved you. We didn't do anything to earn it. We didn't deserve it. And He still saved you. When you couldn't control your salvation, God did it for you. Why not trust Him with everything else? See, I'm going to tell you one thing that other people have said not to. I'm going to say, control what you can. I've heard people say, Jesus, take the wheel. Well, that's like that song, take the wheel. I'm going to give you all the control. What I'm going to tell you is control what you can, because He's given you control. He's given you joy. Your joy is in your hands. Your peace is in your pocket. But everything that you can't control, leave the rest on God. He wants you to take charge of your household. He wants you to take charge of your family. He wants you to have good values and good relationships. So hold the wheel, but drive in the direction where He wants you to go. Not to the road that leads to worry and anxiety and control. You drive the narrow way. He gives you the wheel, but He makes the way. And our job is to follow the GPS correctly, not taking detours. So give Him control over your heart. Give Him control over your mind. Give Him control on your finances. Even when the economy is tanking, giving Him control. When the economy has tanked completely and the cost of everything has gone up, and what used to be able to sustain you no longer is able to sustain you. You don't know how you're going to do it, but that's the key. You don't know how, but you know who is in control. You think anytime we face a difficult challenge or a surprise, do you think it comes as a surprise to God? It may surprise our little annoying control freak minds, but nothing comes as a surprise to God. He saw it coming, and He saw you in it, and He knows how to get you out of it and when He's going to bring you out of it. So if you're here thinking, I'm losing control, maybe it doesn't have to be a bad thing, because you losing control means you giving it to God. We try to control situations that God is already in control of. If He is sovereign, if He is all-powerful, if He is all-knowing, and controls everything, and nothing in this universe happens outside of His will, He knew who you were, He knew what you will be, and He knows things that you don't even have a clue about that He's protecting you from. Why worry about the things that you cannot control? Maybe God is telling someone tonight, give me my job back. This is my battle. I will fight for you. The Lord will fight for you. And I believe that God is a trustworthy God, and He can do my battles so much better than I can. The things that I can't control, He can control. And be so much better than I could ever be.